This is Huddersfield, but it hasn't always looked this way. The place that we call home has lots of history. Let's go back in time and take a look. The earliest settlers in the area date back to the late Neolithic period, with evidence of various tools being found locally. These groups would have moved a lot, choosing to utilise the rivers for fishing and trade. During the Bronze Age, we know the first stable settlement began on what is now Castle Hill. The settlement burned down due to a fire in 430 BC, remaining unoccupied for over 1,000 years after this event, but life continued in other locations. Just outside of Huddersfield, Slack Roman Fort was built in 80 AD. This was used by a garrison and would have had a surrounding community. After the Romans withdrew from England, the north of England was left to defend itself from attacks by Vikings and Anglo-Saxons. Huddersfield was most likely left barren, with very few people living in the area. When the Normans arrived, they returned and built a motte and bailey castle on the site where the first settlement once stood. This castle stayed occupied for over 100 years. In the 1500s, William Ramsden married Joanna Wood and was gifted land and property in the area. This began a long association between the Ramsden family and Huddersfield. The family bought up more land, and eventually, in 1599, they purchased the manor of Huddersfield from Queen Elizabeth I. The Ramsden family were responsible for Huddersfield gaining a market charter and encouraged trade and industry with the building of the Cloth Hall. They also improved transport links to the town with the railway and canal. During the Industrial Revolution, work moved from cottage industries to factories. As machinery took over, the Luddites were a group of people who were opposed to the use of machinery, fearing it would take away their livelihoods. One Huddersfield factory owner, William Horsfall, was murdered by Luddites after leaving the Cloth Hall one day. Huddersfield became a wealthy town due to the textile industry, but conditions were very tough for people who worked in the factories. In 1895, the George Hotel in Huddersfield was the venue for an important meeting that led to Rugby League being founded. The sport is still very popular today, with the Huddersfield Giants representing the town. In the early 1900s, the fight for women's suffrage, the right to vote, was fought all over the country. With Huddersfield's strong tradition of protest, dating back to the Luddites, it is not surprising that the town became a hive of suffragette activity. During the 20th century, war gripped Europe and Huddersfield felt the impact. Belgian refugees came to the town looking for work and to help boost the war effort in Britain by supporting the factories. Not everybody agreed with the war though, and Huddersfield had a number of protesters known as conscientious objectors. In 1920, the Huddersfield Corporation purchased the Huddersfield estate from the Ramsden family, making Huddersfield the town that bought itself. In World War II, a prisoner of war camp was situated just outside of the city. Evidence of this can still be seen today from above. After the war, Huddersfield received people from all over the world who came to work largely in the textile industry. Eventually, many of the mills closed. Some were destroyed and others have been repurposed into housing or places of work. Despite the industry not being as popular as it once was, its influence on the town's growth and development is still evident today. What makes you proud to be from Huddersfield?